It's all yours. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I'll call today's meeting to order. Start with our acknowledgement of Indigenous peoples. The town of Rocky Mountain House wishes to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is Treaty 6 territory and a traditional meeting ground and home for many Indigenous peoples, including the Blackfoot, Cree, Saulteaux, Stoney, and Métis. Moving on to number 3. Start with our acknowledgement of Indigenous peoples. The town of Rocky Mountain House wishes to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is Treaty 6 territory and a traditional meeting ground and home. So our audio works on YouTube. I've resolved that, Mayor. Thank you for your graciousness. We're ready? Okay, so we'll move on to number 3. We have an agenda in front of us. Does anybody have anything to add to the agenda? Mr. Schrader, do you have
I do not.
Okay. Councilor Alderson?
Maybe just under individual parties and discuss how individual versus center, child center expert.
That would be an admin inquiry, or will that be, yeah, we can just do that as an
Someone
inquiry, yeah. Yeah, I don't think we have to add that, we'll just do that in an inquiry. Anybody else? Mr. Phillips?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda for today as
Presented, because I think we'll just put the out in the inquiry.
okay, as presented.
All in favor of that motion? And that's carried, thanks. We'll move on to number 4, delegations. Welcome, Ebor Technologies. And could I have you guys do your introductions? That would be great. Want to ask somebody else?
No, I'll do it. So,
Okay.
Paul Cairns, I'm founder and currently Chief Business Development Officer and Director of Ebor Technologies, Inc.
Stephen Lindup, Government Relations and Business Development.
Chris Chang, Senior Development Engineer at Everett Technology.
Good. Thanks very much. Welcome, and thanks for coming to present to us today. So I will turn the floor over to you, and the presentation, if you scroll, will be down in front of
Scroll
us.
through your slides.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm not really going to planning to step too far, like step through this like a presentation. It's been provided and maybe you've had a chance to review. There's a specific topic that I'd like to get to, but I do find that if you don't understand what it is, or you have questions and those questions go left unanswered, they turn into doubts, and then this thing that I want to talk to you all about today kind of isn't heard, okay? So I thought we could take a couple minutes as long as it takes. There must be questions. I know there are. I presented to some of you in the past, about a year ago. We've done a demonstration facility of all this technology and things that we have, which we now call our 1.0 version of Everloop. We've done it right here in the county of Clearwater. Yeah, probably all of you have heard or know about approximately where it is. We visited the site on the way here because Chris, who's relatively new to the company, hadn't been there before, and it's kind of important that he goes and see the site. But are there any technical questions? I assure you I'm warmed up. I brought my father with me today for the ride, and he has questions, of course, as to what this thing is and what we do and whatever. So I'm all warmed up with the questions. There are no silly ones. I want to make sure everyone has a good feeling and understanding of what this is, so that we can talk about how maybe we can do some more of it and do it here in Rocky Mountain House and in this area. So are there technical questions, Scott?
So I guess I'll start with, I have seen the presentation. I'm not sure who around this table has seen the presentation. So could you just give like a brief introduction to what your presentation is then? And yes, we do have the presentation in front of us, but.
Okay. What I'm going to talk about is, this slide deck talks technically about what an Everloop is, and again, I can go through the details of that. And interrupt me anytime to build a power generation station. Okay, these power generation stations can be built virtually anywhere. To really make my point by what I mean by anywhere is Everloop works on the planet Mars. Okay, center of Mars is a radioactive decaying core, like the center of Earth. As you drill into Mars, as you drill into Earth, it gets hotter. Okay? We have a technology designed to harvest that heat. Traditional geothermal, what everyone thinks of geothermal, we are not. We are not the same as that. There are massive differences between us and traditional geothermal. We work technically anywhere, including Mars. Now, the mobilization of drilling rigs to Mars is going to be pricey, and the market for electricity on Mars is poor, okay? So I'll bring it back to Earth. This works in Antarctica. You know what? Same problem. Drilling rigs to Antarctica, expensive, not a big market for electricity. Let's bring it right home here to Rocky Mountain House, okay? The cost of drilling an Everloop, the cost of doing what has been described up here, there is no place on this planet less expensive to build an Everloop than here in Alberta, okay? The technology that is Everloop comes from Alberta, and I don't really mean Western Canada, I really do mean Alberta. The drilling technology, the advancements in particular in drilling technologies in the last 7, 8, 9 years, that have a lot of them have come from advancements in Alberta for the oil and gas industry, are repackaged, in some cases not altered in any way, and put together for a different purpose, and that's drilling for this heat that is definitely in the ground everywhere you go. All we need to do is get to that location. All we need to do is be excellent drillers to access hot rock. It doesn't matter if this rock is permeable. It doesn't matter if there's an aquifer in there. All these things that matter for traditional geothermal oil and gas operations, what is there? It is assured that the heat target, rocks that are hot, are there, for sure, just like they are on Mars, just like they are in Antarctica. You go deep enough, you get to the heat that you need. Here in Western Canada, we have a sedimentary basin. Everybody in this room knows what that means, okay? We have a 1.0 version of our technology that works in sedimentary rock, tested 20 kilometers from where we sit, okay? We can access rocks in a sedimentary basin at a deep enough zone that it's hot enough for us to do what we want to do with it, which is in this case, make electricity. Or I suppose you could use the heat directly for heating buildings and things like that. But the real thing we're going to talk about today is making electricity. So that's our technology. That's what it does. We're not, to this date, we haven't started here in Alberta to do this. We tested it here, but where we're commercializing is not here. Well, why wouldn't it be here? This is the least expensive place in the world to drill an Everloop. So I'm comparing to traditional geothermal. I'm talking about an Everlight facility, just like I said, just close by here. Here's a few of us turning the facility on. Here's the 2 rigs drilling simultaneously, drilling towards each other, connecting. It's 2.5 kilometers in the ground, 2.5 kilometers apart. Single vertical wells that branch into multilaterals, just 2 multilaterals. Each one of those multilaterals making a direct connection. We don't mean close, connected. You could put a camera down there now and not be able to tell me where the intersection happened. It just is a contiguous tube in the ground, okay? Running on thermal siphon. But now I want to start commercializing it here where it's all from, where we're all from. Why don't we? What's the problem? The cost of doing this is lowest in the world here. You know what else we enjoy in Alberta? We enjoy one of the lowest power prices for electricity in the world. So it's not as bad as Mars or Antarctica, but you know what? It's pretty bad. For us to build this and then own it, and we're not really the ones that are going to be owning this. Others come in. We license the technology for others to come and build. Energy companies build these things. Probably those energy companies are going to look a lot like oil and gas companies because they're comfortable with the operations of drilling and doing what we do. The precision drilling rigs that drilled Everlight just this last summer, the crews on there and the equipment was no different. There was no new training. It wasn't 1 minute of training to do something different. They just employed the same techniques they've always done hitting a target. Just happened to be a 6-inch target in a certain spot on the earth, but nonetheless is the same technology they've always done. So the price to do it is cheap here, but the revenue, the owner of the Everloop, the person that builds the Everloop, the revenue that comes in for the sale of power into the ASO, into the power grid here, is somewhere between $40 and $50 is what I know you pay more for that at home, but this is an important point. You pay more than $40 to $50 at home for your electricity, because you're paying for it delivered. Okay, we're gonna get to that. But the power plant, the coal plant or the gas-fired plant or whatever it is that makes electricity, at their plant gate, they're not getting 120 a megawatt hour like you're paying. They're getting 40, they're getting the ASO pool price, $40, $50, okay? In Germany, where likely the world's first commercial Everloop, 10 times the size of the one that we built over here, like the ones we want to build here. In Germany, the price of power that the German government provides to green, clean, base load power generation, like what Everloop is 250 euro a megawatt hour. 250 euro. We get here 40 Canadian dollars. It's 8 times, 9 times the revenue. Mind you, it costs 2 to 3 times the money to build an Everloop in Germany. Well, of course, we're starting there. The economics are wildly good for the owner of the Everloop that wants to do it. Again, I want to do it here in Alberta. So we have a plan to get that done. Okay? So I'm going to skip by a bunch of this stuff. Okay? So everything you need to know about the plan is on this page. Okay? We have a big plan to do 100 Everloops in this province, creating 400 megawatts of power spread around the province wherever the Everloops are being done. That doesn't need to be 100 different locations. It certainly could be. But at one location, we would always try to pick suspended and active well sites, like the Everlight facility was, 2 well sites that were suspended and active, so we repurposed those locations. Just to be clear, we do not use the old wellbore. The vertical wellbore is not the right, it doesn't work. But the site itself is very valuable. The access roads, it's all set up for a rig, right? It's ready to go. So the 100 Everloop plan for the province that's described in here does not need to be 100 different locations. You can put multiple Everloops, you can stack them. One can go this way, one can go that way. You can stack them. You could also just put one in one spot. So anywhere between 1 megawatt electric, and you could probably stack it up to maybe 20, 30 megawatts electric in one spot. Spread around the province, totaling 400 megawatts of power, 100 Everloops. That's the big plan. And it's really only 400 megawatts of electricity in a province that generates with largely gas and coal, 15,000 megawatts. That's our generation capacity here in the province, roughly 15,000 megawatts. We're talking 400 megawatts spread around the province. But that's still a big bite. That still would bring in $4 billion of private capital investment, or for the politicians in the room, $4 billion of GDP uplift into the province. And maybe most importantly, doing 100 Everloops over 5 years, that would drive 5,000 to 6,000 direct jobs in the province of Alberta, plus all the, usually times 3 is how you do that, the indirect jobs that goes around that. Keeping this energy services entity that is the Alberta backbone, the blue collar working backbone in Alberta is the Energy Services Group, keeping that instrument sharp. So perhaps one day if we do achieve Tidewater, our energy services industry has still been working and still been strong. We believe in that 5th year of building the 100 Everloops over the 5 years, that 5th year where you have your 5,000 jobs and so on and so forth, that's somewhere between 32 and 38 drilling rigs active. Each Everloop requires 2 drilling rigs simultaneously working. Okay.
Can I just stop you for a second?
Yeah.
When you say achieve Tidewater, you mean get to the Tidewater, not achieve Tidewater as the company?
Of course, right. No, I mean when we Western Canada can export on the level we'd like to our hydrocarbon, I would like to know as an Albertan, I've lived here all my life, I'd like to know that if that takes 3, 4, 5 years from now, that we'll still have the world's leading energy services sector alive here to take advantage of those new pipelines that are put into place. I mean, I'm being a little bit over dramatic. Maybe I'm not, I don't know. But what I do know is that there's not a lot of energy services activity going on right now because there's not a market for us to go to. And I believe we're all working as best we can to have that market arrive. And we at Ever have the opportunity to put people to work now, doing nothing different than what they've done in the past and what they would do in the future for the hydrocarbon world. I mean, we literally feel very strongly confident we can put 30 to 40 drilling rigs back to work in this province, and we can do it right now if we wanted to. But we still have this economic problem that we talked about. The price of power is still $40 a megawatt hour here, and it's not going to be 150 for maybe 100 years. Okay, so rather than try to do 100 Everloops, which I've been trying to do for the last couple months, we've come up with a different way of looking at it. Why don't we just do 4? Why don't we think about just doing 4? And if 4 turns into 3 or 4 turns into 8, that's all fine. Why don't we find a way to start and do a first couple and get everybody kind of in tune with what's going on. So 4 Everloops, Chris will back me up on this. Generally speaking, anywhere in the province, 4 Everloops is going to cost $140 million. That's what it will cost. And it will make somewhere in the neighborhood, well, if you go over here, it's a little hotter. If you go over here, it's a little cooler. And that matters on how much power you make. But let's just call it 6 megawatts electric. This province generates 15,000 megawatts as a capacity. I'm talking about 6. So we're not carving in on anybody's business of making electricity here in any substantial way. But what we are doing is putting a whole bunch of people back to work. Not 5,000 to do 4 Everloops, but think 500. Okay, so 89 million of the 140 million we're going to get from the federal government of Canada. I mean, if you haven't caught it already, man alive, are we ever on mandate for the federal government for energy production with what we're doing here. I know clean and green isn't necessarily the nicest word around Alberta, but we are a whole bunch of things that Alberta loves. Oh, we also happen to be green. Okay? We are on mandate for the federal government. Federal government is looking for places to spend capital dollars that increase prosperity for Canadians. They just don't seem too thrilled about doing that in places that produce hydrocarbon production and so on and so forth, which of course we are not. We are confident that we can get the 89 million, 65% of $140 million through various different granting operations. Maybe there's a chance, and it's been enlightened upon us recently, there might be a chance to kind of have some of those dollars come a little bit quicker than they normally would through a typical, year and a half long process of getting grant applications. No promises, but we tend to think that there might be an opportunity for some quicker funding for, say, that $89 million. In addition, we're in conversations with the provincial government, the energy ministry, other ministries, looking at different programs. The TIER program has been mentioned and is an example of a location where we might go and try to find this $12 million. That's Alberta kind of pitching in. The $39 million from a private investor, we've got that handled. Just to be clear, it isn't our money. We're not the ones wanting to own this at the end of the day. We're the technology provider, okay? We have several of those in mind that are probably good for the $39 million, given that the governments are good for the other 75% of the capital, okay? At the bottom is price support, and that's what I want to talk to everyone here about. Even though, and this is, the economics here are skinny, okay? $40 is a low number, especially when our company looks at 250 euro in a place like, and that's just an example in Germany. It's higher in Japan, it's higher still in the Netherlands. I mean, there's a massive difference in marketplace. If you can imagine, and this, I'm not bragging, I'm unfortunately have to, spill it out the whole way. Even with 75% of the $140 million capital up front, selling the electricity into the market at $40 Canadian, I'm not going to get that guy with $39 million to come in, the private investor. The IRR return on their investment, the return on that $39 million is still not, it's still too low. We need a higher price than the $40. Other jurisdictions in this province, other municipalities in this province, other cities and towns in this province, one in particular, and I'm not certain it's appropriate that I say who it is, but perhaps that information can be pried out of me another time. But there's another municipality in this province, at least one that I know of, one that we're talking to, one that is on this map of potential locations where we'd like to put one or four of some of these first ever loops, have been able to organize themselves in such a way that their municipality, their town, their city is considered behind the fence. So what that means is that if you can produce power behind the fence and sell that power behind the fence, you don't have to go through the distribution transmission administration rule. So a customer buying power here, currently paying, like you probably do at your house, $120 a megawatt hour, they would be fine to pay $120 a megawatt hour. I mean, that's what they're paying. But if a power generation system, say something that could be placed anywhere, okay, like ours, was placed behind the fence relative to that customer could continue to pay $120 a megawatt hour like they always have. And all $120 would go to the person that produced the power. Okay, so we could find a large user of electricity, someone who needs 4 megawatts. There's lots of those guys around. 4 megawatts is a lot of electricity. That's 20,000 homes electrified. Okay, but there's big industrial users that 4 megawatts is actually small. So some industrial users like Lafarge in the Bow Valley corridor there, well, they're probably using 30, 40 megawatts just to their one little factory there, right? Anyway, if we found a customer like that we could literally build this behind their literal fence, and they would just buy power from the owners of this, or maybe they decide to own the power unit themselves, and there's no problem here. We have the grant money, and now we have the high price because you're getting that full $120 or that full $100, not getting the ASO price of the pool. Okay, that's one way that we can be supported. So one thing I would say to the town of Rocky Mountain House, and also to Clearwater County, and we are speaking with the MLA, Minister Nixon, on these sort of topics. But one way is maybe to have, like I know it's been done already somewhere else in the province, have the town, in a sense, the municipality, take the power from us and then distribute it to the users as it normally would, and it somehow can be considered behind the fence. Not my monkeys, not my circus. I'm probably talking to the right people that could maybe figure out that for the town. If you accomplish that, and we picked a great location, something close to critical infrastructure like your hospital and places that need this resilient power to know it's there all the time, we could have a location shovel ready that could go and be some of this, where this grant money comes from, and the jobs come here and so on and so forth. A second way to get that price support would be is that if we went together to a large corporation, I have a couple in mind, Canadiana corporations who are interested in maybe just providing that top-up difference. We go, the power people that own the Everloop, go and get their $40 from ASO, and then maybe go get $60 top-up, cash money top-up from a large corporation that's interested in contributing to a green, clean, new energy source. And gaining the credit, sometimes called carbon credits, but gaining the credit of being environmental, social, governance, ESG involved in the province. This is a small number. This top up we calculate in the neighborhood of $10 million over 10 years would be what the outlay from a private group like that would need to be. Or the behind the fence scenario. Don't need both. One or the other would work. A third way to do it, and I'll end on this, would be we ask the federal government, and are still continuing to ask the federal government, for them to provide a long-term power purchase agreement. This is sometimes called a feed-in tariff. This is exactly what's going on in Germany and Netherlands and Japan. Feed-in tariffs. It's just a fancy way to say top-up, or just a fancy way to say subsidy. okay? The natural price of power is this in the marketplace, but the government tops it up so that the people building that power station are motivated to do so, okay? So we've asked for this from the federal government, are continuing to ask for this from the federal government. It is what we're trying to get done. And we've explained to them that if you want to do 100 Everloops here in the province and don't want to put a bunch of grants up, like what we're asking for here, then there needs to be a federally supported power purchase agreement. Not just for us, but for anybody who can provide clean, green, baseload electricity. Give them a feed-in tariff at a price that that's actually lower than what the natural market price is in places like Ontario and Quebec. They pay 125, 150. We in Alberta have this low price. So it would make an effect here. So that's for down the road. That's for the other 96 Everloops that we want to build. The third way for this to work now for these first couple is for the municipality or the county or whatever, for them to come up with that top-up amount. Any one of those three ways makes this happen in the area where that price support has been done. So what we would like to do at Ever is work with this municipality to find not only a suitable location for this to go, anywhere, it could be anywhere, but a suspended inactive well site, maybe you got a bit of an eyesore somewhere on the edge of town, I don't know, that some old site that you'd rather not be this rusting bit of stuff that could be moved away and our facility could be put on. It's not up in the air like a windmill, it looks like something you'd park your combine in. It looks like a barn when we're done. If you've been out to our demonstration site, it looks just like that, except without the tank. That tank's just because that's a laboratory for us now. The real thing doesn't have a tank, big barrel of tank in there. But that's what we'd like to look for that location. We would like to figure out who's going to buy the power, who's going to provide the top up, or if the top up's going to be done by an administrative fashion that really only the municipality can do to get them considered in behind the fence. And we'd like to do that as soon as possible because the federal government has reached out to us and many others, I'm positive, and said, what are your shovel-ready projects? We got some here, so what are your shovel-ready projects? So we've got some shovel-ready projects in concept that we know for certain fit the mandate of the federal government, so we feel as though we might come to the top of the list and garner some of those funds, the ones I'm talking about, the 89 million, because we know we're on mandate. But what I need to do is, I can't just say Alberta, I gotta say Rocky Mountain House. And matter of fact, the address of the location is here. Here's a picture of it. Here's the plan we have. Here's the entity that's going to directly take the power. Here's the substation that we're going to connect into. Here's here's what we think it will cost and exactly how long it will take. And this is the exact rig that we'll need for precision drilling to drill. And this is, the plan needs to be shovel ready. It can't just be, I'm going to put 100 Everloops in Alberta. We've already gotten the slow your roll. We'll get to that later from the federal government and provincial government, so on and so forth. I need some focused individual spots. I'm pointing to 6 on the map. We're having conversations exactly like the one we're having right now with the municipalities generally in those particular areas.
So I guess there's something about the term behind the fence and the MGA that don't seem to jive with me. Like I guess I'm not understanding this behind the fence.
Yeah. I too struggle to understand it. There's a rule in the distribution transmission for electricity in the province that if you are, and I'm not an expert on it, but in their definition, behind the fence, then you don't have to go onto the transmission grid and so on and so forth. You can, you're allowed to, it would be like putting a whole bunch of solar panels on the roof of your house. You couldn't sell that power to your neighbor. The utilities would say, no. You maybe can sell the power to us, and then we'll distribute it back to your neighbor. But that's not behind your fence. You can't just put a line over your fence and power your neighbor's house. Just like the cable company. You can't split your cable, and some people do it, right? But you can't split your cable and have them have the TV cable off your bill, right? You're not allowed to do that. Same thing with electricity. So a big use like that, you have to you can make electricity on your own. You don't have to pay Fortis and TransAlta to move it around for you. I mean, if you have it right there, you're allowed to do that behind your fence. What one municipality has been able to do, from my loose understanding of the situation, Stephen's going to be meeting with them in a week or so to get more detail on this, but they've been able to expand either theoretically or geographically, we're not sure, the boundary of what is considered behind the fence for the municipality. So if these 10 homes are in the municipality and the municipality's fence includes those homes, and we put bigger area, and inside that bigger area, we put our Everloop inside that fence and sell the power to the municipality behind the fence, and the municipality pays us the full $100 for the power, and then the municipality sells, because it's still behind their fence, that power, just on sells that power to those homes, and they pay $100, then the $100 comes from the home to the municipality, which went to Everloop behind the fence. That is for sure not what was intended by the behind the fence rules, but through a process, we know a certain group that's been able to organize themselves that way. And so now no one has to pay any more money for their power. No third-party group needs to come in and provide some top-up so that they can wear a green badge of honor or whatever the case might be. The municipality doesn't need to reach into their coffers and provide that power purchase agreement or feed-in tariff, and they don't need to go to the federal government or the provincial government for the same thing. It's behind the fence. It's just, you know, and our scenario is bite-sized, so it fits very well. I am not a coal plant. I don't need to build one coal plant in one spot that makes 700 megawatts of power and move it around the province all over the place. We can put 1 megawatt right where you need 1 megawatt. You need 10 megawatts, well, then we'll put 10. Let's not put 12 where you need 10. Let's put 10 where you need 10. So we can scale it. It's called DER, Distributed Energy Resource. So we kind of have that functionality to us as well. Again, we are resilient. We are on all the time. We can shut on and off. We can fast ramp, come right back on when you need us, stay off when you don't, whatever the case might be. It's excellent for linking up the infrastructure to other critical infrastructure like hospitals, like desalination plants, water pumps for the city, things like that. Places that you really don't want to be out of power at any given time. You can put this right there and link it up. So I'm sorry, I don't know the detail of, I know the detail of what behind the fence means of the normal rules. This other group has done something different within those rules, as I understand it, and a lot of work and effort. And I believe it's possible that they would share that work and effort with other municipalities such as yours. And we're going to talk to them and we're going to ask for that very thing.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Brown has a question.
Just could you clarify for me what role you're looking town to play?
Yeah, one is that your city planners, your organizers, why don't you guys, I'd like you guys to help us find some spots to put these Everloops. Here's a good spot. Fits in with your critical infrastructure, or it's an old abandoned well site, or it doesn't have to be a well site, it can be a process facility, it can be an eyesore, something that's not being used that you'd rather have cleaned up or repurposed. So we'd like some help with that. I'd love it if you went through your process and system to try to replicate this behind the fence idea, okay? I'd like you to come with me when I go and talk to Corporation A, Corporation B about them potentially stepping up and being this, top-up provider and so on and so forth. I'd like the municipality where this is going to be affected and, someone's going to put their sign on it. We supported this green initiative and here's our logo on top of the sign. They'd like to know who's driving by and seeing it from what town or the case might be. I would like local representation to come with me to, for lack of a better term, lobby with private corporations to be the top-up group if the behind the fence thing isn't going to happen. And lastly, and this is the hard ask, but I better ask it, right? If the lobby with the corporation doesn't pan out, I think it will. If the behind the fence reorganization of things doesn't pan out, I hope it will, I see another else do it, but if those things don't pan out, and we still want to build the Everloops here, I still need somebody to top up the power price. And so I would be looking at for that.
Great, thank you.
Have you considered this for food production?
Yeah, yes.
Oh, yes.
To me, that seems like a really key issue right now.
I'm in negotiations with several communities, and it's basically to provide heat and air. It's greenhouses, they need air conditioning more than they need heat. And we're involved with that right now. It's a big. Can I just ask the group a question? Was everybody familiar with the term ESG? Okay, this is Jason Kenney's #1 priority in the province of Alberta, and it's Justin Trudeau's #1 priority in Canada, because we're getting slammed in the EU because we don't meet that tag. We're not environmentally responsible enough, we're not societally involved enough, and we're not involved closely with government in governance. And that's the new marker. Where are you in the ESG? Are you 100% compliant? Do you get that badge to wear? The EU will not do business with Alberta right now because they're saying we're not ESG compliant enough. So it's a huge thing, and every corporation in North America now understands that, because it's a shunning device, and it's a way of competing, but it's also a way of pushing up those levels of behavior. And Kenny has made it a big priority, and they're making, like, we're working very, very closely with the Alberta Energy Regulator, and they're ready to go on 6 days notice. Boom, they'll clear a project instead of a year and a half. We say we want to put a project here, within 6 days, we'll have approval. And they're looking at decentralizing the grid so that it's not controlled by just a few large corporations and building all these billion-dollar lines to move power. Right now, we import 880 megawatts of electricity, mostly from Montana and British Columbia. So that holds Alberta and our economy hostage. We can start making it, that's the 800 megawatts that I'm very interested in knocking off, so that we're self-reliant in power, because everything you use works on electricity, and it's just growing exponentially. And the power that the devices draw are growing exponentially. And data storage, which eats a tremendous amount of power, is growing.
New industries for us here. And in addition to the heat question, so it seems obvious that greenhouses, right? Let's work on food sustainability and so on and so forth. And that is a big part of what Stephen and I speak to the government about, is to the location. I'd like to point out something about the Everloop. It brings heat to surface. It is not our technology that screws the box to that turns that flowing hot water into electricity. That's off the shelf, well understood technology. We bring that in. Okay, optimize it, but bring it in. Our system doesn't need to have that. It could just be using for direct heating. Heat, it's a lot to explain. I'm certain Chris could explain it in detail, but heat can be used for air conditioning, to cool things. Reverse heat pump, you can cool things down in the summer, heat things up in the winter. No change to the Everloop at all. Also, that Everloop itself, it could be seasonal. In the winter, it could provide heat. And in the summer, when you don't need it, or don't need it as much, that same exact system, the flow can just be clicked over to the heat to power units and make electricity in the summer. One end could make heat, one end could make electricity. It's extremely flexible in that case. So it's more than greenhouses. It's also the preheating in industrial processes in oil and gas. They need to heat things up on surface. Okay, we can't heat it up to 300 degrees, but we can definitely get it from ambient to 120, 130 and save all that natural gas burn on the first preheat portion. So yes, and by the way, the economics of using the direct heat, remember the direct heat, you definitely do have to put it right where you need it. I can't move heat all over the place like you can electricity. But the value of heat in this province, even with the abundance of natural gas, the economics of heat, we don't need to top up. Just replace what you're paying for natural gas, the value of heat, into a process. This thing is economical out on its own. on heat level.
Councilor Fraser?
So we listed the three options, the behind the fence and the corporate price support isn't a financial question for us.
Mhm.
But I'm looking at 9% return for private investors over 30 years. Is there a financial argument for the price support if we get through the other options and they don't work and you're looking at a top-up? Is there a financial plan as to when the system is paid off and when we would see returns on that?
Okay. So you're not gonna love this answer.
Probably not.
Okay. 9% is the hurdle rate that is achieved for the person that put the $39 million in, given that the price support is there. Okay? That's the I believe, I'm not a financial wizard. I don't know every financial investor in the world, whatever, but I do know the ones that we're talking to, in particular about doing projects here in Alberta and putting up that $39 million, and they need to see 9%. Happily, our technology is very predictable. Unlike oil and gas, unlike traditional geothermal, you kind of hope you're going to get what you're going to get, and you got to go find out. We can determine it in advance. We can know with great accuracy what it's going to cost, especially places like Alberta, to do it. And we can know with great accuracy, this is a big thing for our technology, different than other ones. We can tell you with tremendous accuracy what your yield is going to be, how much power you're going to get. It's not, hopefully it's here, oh, the well didn't come in as well as we thought. No, we know it exactly. 9% is the number, IRR return, for the person that put up the $39 million. 9% is the number that makes me feel confident that they'll do it. The price support is part of the formula to get them to the 9%, along with the 75% grants, right? That's a big, all calculated into why they get to 9%. What's the return for the person that put up this price support money? Okay, quantitatively, it's nothing. Qualitatively, it's the jobs, it's the in your local area, it's the getting an industry moving here, it's the what comes next. But here's what I can offer, certainly can't promise. Remember the other 96 Everloops that we want to build here that aren't going to require the grants, that are going to require a power purchase agreement from the federal government? From the federal government, a top up for the other 96? What we would do, of course, is lobby to say, look, Rocky Mountain House here stepped up. They couldn't get the behind the fence thing done. We couldn't get a private corporation to come in for some ESG and top it up. Rocky Mountain House stepped up. They took the risk. Said we're gonna pledge the $10 million over 10 years to make this happen for our area. Then if the federal government comes along with the power purchase agreement for the other 96, we contract you out. But I can't sit here and promise that will happen. But that is, of course, what we will try to do. So I give you the first two options as a way to avoid that. You know, what I'm hoping for, whatever is hoping for today, obviously not great today, but what we're hoping for in the short term is that your municipality and the other ones we're talking to say, look, we will try to get the behind the fence thing done because of course you'd want to. We will work with Ever to talk to the corporations looking for some ESG and get the top up there. But we're looking for the pledge from the municipality that if those things fail, that they'll step up, they'll take the risk, they'll do what a lot of Albertans end up having to do and go first and push the innovation and so on and so forth. I realize that is a very difficult ask, but nonetheless, I'm asking.
I just have one follow-up question.
I'm just sort of looking at the time here, so.
Okay, sorry, I was just gonna say, is there a point where the market gives you enough that you no longer need that top-up? Does that get?
We have excellent third-party participation, analysts, so on and so forth. What's the price of power going to be? What's the price of carbon credit going to be? All these things calculated in. That's why it's 10 years. We predict that in 10 years, the power price, the price of carbon, the value of carbon credits and so on and so forth, which we are very efficient in generating and so on and so forth, remove that top-up need at about the 10-year mark. And I am a little bit of a financial wizard sometimes. If we did that top up in a little different fashion with the municipality a big in a sense entity like the municipality, Rocky Mountain House, or the county, or whatever. What we could do is when and if that power price, as predicted, swings the other way, and there's a profit over and above that 9%, you see? Okay, then we could lock in the guy who put the money down in the beginning to make 9%. And when and if there was a financial situation that there was more than 9%, he wouldn't get that. That money would have to go somewhere. I guess it would go to the person that stepped up and got that done.
So I'm gonna ask on this side of the table if anybody has any questions. So,
I do, yeah, I was just wondering, like, I imagine the one in Germany is fairly successful for you to want to do things here, but is there any negatives? You know, is there any issues with, because there's gonna be always somebody who wonders, as you're drilling into the earth, things like that, is there any risks involved? There's lots of pros, what are the major risks that somebody might see in this area?
We'll talk quickly about this slide, and then I'm gonna get Chris, put him on the spot to say some things.
sorry, just in the, we might have to take a
Rick-
to come back
Okay,
after, if we could just answer Councilor Alder's.
real fast.
Yeah.
We believe we are the most benign form of power generation ever conceived. Smallest surface footprint, no seismicity risks, we don't frack, we don't interact with, we don't pump fluid in or pull fluid out of the formation. We are simply making borehole in the ground. We seal and protect the rock completely from our formation. No fluid from the, if there is fluid in there, none of it's coming into our system. None of our fluid, which is just water, is going out into the formation. Okay, we are totally benign, nothing toxic. I'll go further. We are the smallest footprint, surface footprint, massive subsurface footprint, smallest surface footprint per megawatt of electrical power generation compared to anything else. Nuclear, coal, gas, wind, solar, smallest. Okay, we are totally silent on surface. Come out to the facility, nothing, no sound. Nobody pumps running, nothing's going on. It's totally quiet. There's no light being, there's no light pollution. We are the world's most benign form of power generation, for sure.
Sorry, I think we need a longer period of time to have a longer.
I talk too much. It's been a terrible half of my whole life.
It's all good, but, I mean, some of us have seen this
Yes.
presentation, and I understand, like, it's not, I think we need a 2-hour session, maybe better to understand
Sure.
everything, so.
We're gonna have to tour around town and you're gonna show me all the sites that are good spots for this anyway. So.
Sure, sounds good. Well, we really appreciate you coming to Rocky Mountain House to share with us your technology. And we look forward to maybe even seeing what other municipalities are doing and bringing us more information that we could make more sound decisions on. So.
Stephen will connect with you once we've done our little bit of reconnaissance next week,
Sure.
and hopefully introduce you and put you on that path.
Okay.
I've brought some goodies. I'll just leave them behind.
Okay,
The
awesome.
models in these boxes are highly coveted, so get them while they last.
Thank you very much, everybody. Nice meeting you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, it's 1:48. I'll just call a couple of break.
Like it's, I don't know what happened. I'm just happy it stopped. Did you hear the alarms start going?
No.
Yeah, they're like 911 emergency alarms started going. I was just stuck there. No, it's my phone. It's just.
I've also left my business cards up here.
We have, I'll call back to order. We have minutes in front of us. If you have any, my computer. So I was at them yesterday, thanks. Anybody have anything for today? Otherwise, I just look for a motion. Thanks, Will. There they are. All in favor of that motion? Okay, and that's carried, thank you. And move on to delegation business. Any other comments, questions about Igor? It is interesting, it's all the technology. We're just on the cusp of a bunch of that to happen, so. Just looking for a motion to accept your technology presentation and presentation. Councilor Fraser, all in favor of that motion? That's carried, thank you. Okay, moving on to 7.1, the amendment to fees and rates and charges bylaw. And giving that over to you.
I'll be presenting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So we had at the last council meeting, we were going to review and do an update and amendment to the fees and rates bylaw to allow for the fees for the fire services, because there was 2 bylaws that we passed. Since that time, there was also, council had requested that we come back with the changes to the tennis and pickleball courts. And there was also a fireworks permit fee that I wanted to add. So if you go through the bylaw, I've highlighted in red the changes to the bylaw. And then I've also included a clean copy to go through it briefly with you. Under the fire rescue services, basically, the intent was twofold. It establishes a user-based fee and it helps to reduce the number of false alarms because the cost, or at least a portion of the cost, goes back to it becomes the responsibility of the owner for the false alarms. Under the fireworks bylaw, there was just a $50 fee that was added under the recreation fees for the tennis and pickleball court fees. What was proposed, and Mr. Ament could maybe speak to this if you have questions. It's just basically, it's to allow a drop-in for no fee, while those who are part of a league or whatever, that they have to pay the fee to reserve the court. And by paying, it actually gives them precedence to, they get first dibs at the court. So if somebody was using a drop-in, and there would be a schedule placed at the court so that they knew there was somebody coming in at, say, 2 o'clock or whatever, what have you.
That'd be similar to the baseball then, right?
Yeah, people would reserve through guest services a court, and gives them priority for usage of the court at the fees that we've proposed. I think that addressed council's concerns from the last meeting.
It is for me. Anybody else have any comments? No?
And then the other fee that we added was the $50 Fireburn permit fee. And we wanted consistency between Clearwater County and the town because of the regional fire. So everything would be consistent.
The permit and whatnot for the fireworks, so if I wanted to have one in my backyard, I just shoot off 3 fireworks, I have to go down and get a permit.
Under the new fireworks bylaw, yes.
I guess, what was the process previously? Did they go to Clearwater County because they were managing our fire department, or was there no?
I don't know.
Is that referring to
Yeah.
the fire, the
For fireworks,
fireworks?
Yeah.
Yeah, before the Alberta government, I believe, did not wire, I guess, jurisdiction as far as the regional fire. They kind of wiped their hands a couple years ago. So they weren't issuing any permits for fireworks in the county or in town as well. In town, we used to do it as council in previous years for the Indigenous days. Even for Canada Day, we actually had to go to BAM to get approval from their fire department through great choice doing fireworks in the county. You still have to get your, I think, fire permit from the Alberta government from SRD to have fireworks in the county, in regards to for jurisdiction, but as far as they weren't approved fireworks in the county. So it was kind of a gray area the last couple of years in regards to approving fireworks.
So, would you have any follow-ups?
How many residential permits, how many inquiries have we gotten for people to actually personal use?
None. Yeah, I think I actually heard some the other night. So, yeah.
Probably from Council Ross.
Yeah.
Any other questions? No? Okay, we have some time.
I would like a motion that we accept the alternative to this. So the council adopted meeting by law 2020-17 to amend the fees, rates, and charges by law 2021 by Adam Schedule H. So for rates for fire service and false alarms, fireworks per fee, fireworks per fee, and to provide the tenants and the club owners to allow the proper use of no charge while reserve use is subject to fee measures.
All in favor of that motion? That's carried.
Motion that council give second reading to amend bylaw 2027.
All in favor of that motion? Opposed?
I voted.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
There.
I had a feeling that you didn't see two, I should have looked at.
Okay, that's carried, thank you. Councilor Phillips?
I'd like to make a motion that council give unanimous consent to proceed to third reading for amending bylaw 2020/17.
Okay, all in favor of that motion? That's carried. Thank you. Councilor Fraser?
I will, the council is here to final reading. I think,
All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. Thank you. Guys.
Thank you.
On to 8.1, social media, media relations and public statements policy.
Thanks, Mayor and Council. So Renee and I both invested time and energy into bringing this to Council today. So although I'm talking, I don't want to overlook Renee's contribution as well. So this is really, when we had a look at our policies, our social media policy on the books was considerably outdated from 2012. There was good information in there. However, it could stand a revision and an update. So in drawing on some experience from other municipalities, we've combined social media relations and public statements into one, because they all really do serve the same purpose. It's what voice our municipality is putting out into the public sphere. And so that's what you see in front of you. Mayor, would you like me to page through it? Has council had the opportunity to read it? Were there any questions? how would you like me to go
read
for
it.
it? Mhm.
Does anybody have any, what would you guys like to do, page by page, or? No, I have some questions.
Sure.
My biggest thing is, who's policing, like, who polices this? Who is the overall arching of, I guess, who determines what is acceptable and not acceptable?
Okay, sure. So this policy really states that it is the CAO or delegate, or designate, pardon me, which when it comes to the voice of the town that we put out, and this is for the operations side of things, so administration operations, it is, the CIO sets the direction. Generally, it's the position of communications coordinator that administers it, but it is, the policy does say that it is, and I'll find it, that the CAO is, basically sets the direction for the tone of voice, the information that's shared, and that type of thing.
Councillor Allen?
And this is all geared strictly to the town, Facebook page, town, communication page, sharing this town run. Correct?
Yeah, so absolutely. So social media would, because there's really three parts here, the social media, media relations, and public statement. So it's anything that's branded to the town. So that is our town and rec social media channels, our website, media relations is, of course, when anybody within the administration is speaking to media. It also covers public statements, which is something that's never been in policy before. And that would be anytime any one of us is up here in front of you in a public meeting, what we say is a public statement. And so it just puts something on paper that causes us to measure our words, because we do want to be speaking with a consistent voice to our residents and stakeholders. But it doesn't dictate what council does in the public sphere, because you have your own code of conduct bylaw for that. This is very much, it's an administrative policy for the for the information that we are putting in the public sphere as a town of Rocky Mountain House organization.
I can't find it now, but when I was reading through it, it talks about how direct messages, private messages, say on Facebook, are not considered to be public statements. Is that right? Or did I-
Pardon me? Oh, it's under the guidelines. So I think what it means is they're not considered formal communications.
Okay, why would that be? Like if the town responding to somebody in a private, or can the town respond? Like from the town website, can you private message the town? And
Absolutely.
respond to the town?
Yeah.
So why wouldn't that then be considered?
Formal communication.
Yeah.
So do we have formal communication in the definition? Let me see. We do not, unless it's in the other one.
So then maybe that would be helpful to have formal communication in the definition.
I'm just seeing if it appears. It does not either there. And why not? It's a great question. It's something that is pretty standard across municipalities. That
To me, it's no different than the email.
right. So I think what it's trying to get at, and how I would differentiate it, if I may, Mayor, is that if somebody sends a message on Facebook saying, "I want my road plowed," or something like that is not a formal communication that our public works department would have to act on. Like, you'd really need to contact them directly. And so while we do our best to funnel those messages to the correct department, one cannot think they've done their civic duty by responding to the town simply by sending a Facebook message.
Right, if the town responded, then to me that, if I was a citizen, if the town responded to my Facebook inquiry, to me the town has that information. So I don't understand why we would not have that as an official, we either don't have it as a means of communication, don't respond to it, or it is an official means of communication if you're responding to it. It seems to me a little bit silly to be like, well, I did respond on Facebook, but that doesn't really count. If you're responding, then, we now have that information to me, especially if it is something like that, as I'm Joe Public or Jane Public. I've sent that information, it's been acknowledged. How many other different ways do I need to send? That's just my thoughts on it.
I wonder if I just need to clear up the guidelines some, because perhaps the operational example was a poor one. And it may be more that it shouldn't be considered formal communication with council. Because of course, when you're looking for public input or stakeholder input, you're looking for that delegation request or an email directly to you. And if they send that, because that does happen, people see the town and they think they're talking directly to the mayor on Facebook. So perhaps it just needs to be clarified that it's, direct messages to the town of Rocky Mountain House channels is not considered formal communication with council. And if I could just find the page.
I know, I can't find it either. Maybe I made it up.
But I wonder if it's in actually the communications policy instead.
They're not avoidable.
Are they not?
It would depend on, like,
Maybe it was in the old one.
yeah, what we put in the policy is that social media channels will include a link to appointment statement. I think it would depend on if it's still, because it's public, right? It's already public when it's on a social media platform. So because it's public, I think that the information is already
I'm talking about the direct messages, though, the private messaging.
the private.
That's what I'm
messages?
talking about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
And
I
I
think,
honestly
yeah,
can't
I
find
would think that they would be voidable if they're like a private message would be voidable.
So, sorry, Councilor Rand, you're on Schedule 8?
I just, like I said, I remember reading it when I was going through.
I've actually found it in the old
So maybe
policy,
that's
one in
where-
2012,
Yeah.
that says direct messages are not considered official
There you go,
correspondence.
so it's not even.
Official
in the-
correspondence means communications written, faxed, or emailed to the town that includes proper name and address. Residents of Rocky Mountain House should always contact the town by email or in writing if they have a formal complaint, customer service request, comment, or inquiry.
So it's new.
So that is in the old one. Not to say that something similar exists in the new one, I just haven't.
I'm not seeing it at all even
No.
there, so maybe it does still need to be addressed or silenced is.
And the note here regarding VoIP is that if it's a third party advertising. So if it's another partner, like a town partner that's a corporation or a business, they fall under different regulations for PETA rather than VoIP. So protection of information. They fall under a different act for protection of privacy. So they would fall under that act, whereas anything under the town would fall under VoIP.
So I had a question on number 7, social media personal use.
Sure.
So we're talking about the employee's personal page?
Yes.
Okay, can the employee do that? Like, who's setting?
It's referencing the town.
Right.
So everybody can make public statements, but as town staff, we're required to maintain a certain code of conduct as well, outside of work. And that would include, information that's posted on social media, on our own private accounts,
About the town of Rocky
about the
Mountain
town of
House.
Rocky Mountain.
But then under that, maybe just explain it to me, because maybe I'm just misunderstanding, under I, announcements from labor or political organizations. Does that to say that a personal page can't have announcements from labor or political organizations that they may belong to?
That's what this draft does imply, yeah.
Am I reading this wrong? Like, is that sort of an infringement on their rights?
Any,
Well-
or any?
Oh, sorry, no.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I just feel that it doesn't belong. I mean, if I have a job, but I still have the right to advertise my political view, as long as I'm not speaking on behalf of the town. I don't like that one bit. maybe, like, does anybody else see a problem with that? Yeah, I think it's completely infringing on the personal rights of our employees.
Well, as municipal staff, we're supposed to be apolitical.
Pardon?
We're supposed to be apolitical under
Not on your personal page, though. That you were asking people on their personal page to not be on their personal time, and they're not elected officials, to be able to have their political freedom. I don't know, I don't know would that fly in a court? Could somebody come back to us legally and say, you can't do that? I don't know. That's all right.
I just want to expand on what Renee just said. As municipal employees, you're meant to be apolitical. Is that something, is that like a MGA thing? Is that something?
well, it
that
kind of
is-
falls more under like the ethics
Yeah.
for municipal employees, because if we were to become politically involved, then there's an impact, because we do the work that you request of us. So to have a political opinion that could potentially conflict, or, it would put us in a position that
But if it
I think
doesn't show
would
up
be
in your
contrary to
performance.
the council that we work for. Pardon me?
If that's not evident in your performance of your duties at work, I'm sort of studying, like I see exactly what the mayor is saying, that in your personal realm. Yeah, I'm not sure.
I mean, we also are in the same way, we have to be the same way.
Yeah.
We can't be on the political stance.
Yeah.
So
We're
I
elected.
understand, we are.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a big difference between being elected and being hired, and I get you have to be cautious,
Yes.
but I still don't think we would have the right to take our political freedoms away from somebody posting what party they support on their personal Facebook page.
And that's certainly, that's something we could remove from the,
Councillor Grayson?
I don't mind some of it. I can understand why the racist, sexist, slanderous, like all of that makes sense as a professional, but I agree with you. Labor and political organizations, I think within reason.
Well, there's the solution.
Right.
But if it became an issue, it would appear in the other items.
That's what I think that would be covered, if you're supporting a party that subscribes to any of those other issues, and that's what you're putting forward, that's an issue. But if somebody shared something from the federal government, that shouldn't be, I don't think that should be a problem.
Councillor Alderson and Councillor.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, perhaps the reason it's there is because it could be deemed as favoritism in some way, shape, or form. If you're in a position where you run something for the town and you are pulling political favors because of your stance a certain way, that could be the problem. And I'm sure that's probably why it's there. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but that's probably why it's in there.
We're the decision makers of that, though, right? So that, I see
Not
what you're
everything's in our
saying, yeah.
control. So it's perception, and perception is everything. It's always perception.
Councillor Phillips?
When we're talking about political organizations, I think most people are talking about the big three political organizations, but there are some colorful or off-the-wall political organizations that may have some of these, in points E and F, and, there may be points in there that tie to those political organizations, and I think that's maybe what that is referring to, is that if we allow all political organizations, then we allow the ones that are radical as well.
That's what we have here.
But we're asking if that's what that's referring to, but we're not sure if that's, because
well, it's a general broad statement, right? So it's a broad statement based on, kind of the code, the kind of conduct that's expected of municipal staff. Now, if you're uncomfortable with the broad statement, we could rework it so it's maybe more specific, or we could remove it altogether. And because we still have our personnel policy that staff are required to abide by,
And much of it is reflected in the opening paragraph under 7, which is, the town acknowledges and respects the rights of employees who choose to participate in social media. Employees may express their views as private citizens. They will be accountable for their personal use of social media in the same way they are accountable for any other off-duty conduct. And so that spells it out as well.
And I have that line actually underlined,
Okay?
because I just, maybe I'm getting too hung up on legal wise here, but could an employee come back and say, no, they were, again, it's back to whose discretion is that at?
I wonder if our Director of Corporate Services, who also supervises HR, has any insight.
You mean on Al?
Or even just what employees off-duty conduct they can be held accountable for.
Yeah.
I've put her on the spot.
I was actually trying to find it in here.
Oh,
I was having trouble.
It's good
I think the general statement is all right, because we are expected to maintain a certain amount of decorum. If someone was extreme, they would probably be, there would be discussions at work. So without researching it, I really can't comment. But I'm looking at the item number, is it item number 5?
7.
Page
Those
seven.
are restrictions and regulations.
Social media personal use. I had Councilor Brown and then Dean and then.
I just refer to Laura's comments right at the very beginning, the intent of the document is to make sure that people measure their words before they speak. And I think the subsection L, as is written, does that.
I was wondering if the word announcement is the issue. Just because I think we would want employees to be engaged in what's going on politically if they're announcing something that the governing party puts out as new funding, grant opportunities, or new rules. Sharing that shows a level of political engagement, which I think is required and should be encouraged. Still be apolitical, but maybe the announcement is what's making me feel off about it.
Mr. Schrader, then.
Just a comment, Laura and Renee, in regards to, you give examples of each one of the communities.
Yeah.
I assume, was it more than one, or was there a couple of communities that you kind of married this together?
Primarily
There was a couple.
City of Chestermere, but there were,
So I guess worst case scenario, if you wanted a legal opinion, we could get a legal opinion in regards to the document. I don't want to prolong it, but
we can also strike L
yeah.
if you're comfortable with the balance of it.
Councilor Phillips, Councilor Alderson, and Councilor.
I myself would like to see L stay in there, just for the simple fact that, as Councilor Fraser talked about, announcements from political organizations. So there may be a radical political organization that puts out a very radical statement, which could be, going back to section E, racist, sexist, homophobic, slanderous. It could involve some of that criteria in that post. And if an employee shares that post on social media, now they're announcing that political party on their social platform. So I think it needs to stay in there to avoid.
But that's E, right?
That's what you covered.
That's what E
Well,
covers.
he does, but if we're taking the L, we're saying that, I think the two of them are tied together, is what I'm saying.
I don't think so. I'm just wondering, does this mean if somebody has a political view, they share their choice candidate's statement on their personal page, is that allowable? I'm curious, who's policing that?
Yeah, and
Who's
I
watching
think
my
it's,
page to tell me, as an employee, who's watching my page my personal page to say, hey, you can't have your statement on there of the candidate.
Well, I think probably it would come as a complaint first of all, like it would come in as a complaint. And so, you know, maybe to add radical announcements or, you know, it's just, yeah, it's like that we do have the personnel policy that establishes certain conduct of staff. It would be easy enough to take this out to make everyone comfortable, because we still have the code of conduct that is required, or that we're required to follow as well.
Right. Councillor Alderson.
Yeah, what seems so easy taking it out might end up being hard when we find out why it was in there to begin with, and then we don't have it. So I think if there's a reason it was put in, I'd love to hear the reasoning before just pulling it, because maybe there's a reason it's there that we're not seeing today. So I'd love to hear why Chestermere or another community might have that, because they would know why they've kept it over time. And then if we don't agree with it, I think that we can pull it, but I think to pull it now and then find out we should have had it in, then we'll just be back adding it in later on.
Councillor Ray, then,
Yeah, I think, I mean, I agree with Councillor Alderson. I think, I mean, taking it out, I can't see it being harmed because we have all the bad things covered in the other points. The other thing that it might do is add to a whole bunch of complaints during election time. So, and put our employees in the position of getting constant complaints because somebody supports QCP and somebody supports NDP or whatever, and then we're gonna be getting a ton of community complaints just, and really hurting our employees' ability to participate in even just an election time for sharing information. So I'm fine with waiting to see why it's in there, but I would be comfortable with taking it out as well.
I was just gonna suggest, because it is starting to kind of move into sort of personnel issues, it wouldn't be difficult to get just a legal opinion on that section or that concept, that it's appropriate to be in policy. That would kind of put us.
Councillor Fraser.
I think Betty's idea, my only comment was maybe just needed more wording to say, you know, link to the town. If they said, you know, hey, town of Rocky Mountain House, look at this, and then they shared something. I'm wondering if that's where it's coming from, like it's being directed and linked to the town professionally.
So is all of this basically covered in the code of conduct though, like a lot of this?
It would be under the personnel policy because the.
Right, but I'm just kind of wondering, like, are we overdoing things? Like, if it's already in the code of conduct, or do we just add another section under code of conduct regarding social media?
There is another related policy that is under development that I believe is coming on the 21st, Mayor, and that's a council social media policy. And no, pardon me, the anti-racist and anti-racism policy that councillors asked for a couple of weeks ago, that is coming. And so I know I have spent time with Renee again, going that one, and that one has some crossover with our personnel policy. And it's just not coming to me in my mind right now to and I don't have it with this one, to speak knowledgeably on how they do speak to each other. So if council wants to set it over until the next meeting, we'll have more clear answers on how those two interact with each other.
Yeah, I'm curious to know, like, do we have too many documents going on? Like, could they all be under the code of conduct? Yeah, with this section, under the, clean it up rather than just, you know, oh, go to this policy for that, go to this policy for that. Whereas really, we're talking about code of conduct. This is all about code of conduct, in my mind, so. Mr. Alderson, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was just, I don't know. It's kind of funny, but I don't know, like, again, I'd like to find out why it's there, because maybe it's just little things like, it's not actually a problem that somebody would have an opinion on their personal page, but they're wearing a town badge and they have a town vehicle behind them and it's showing their, you know, now there's a blur between personal and is this a town opinion, is this a political opinion, and it's maybe just the way that they're covering themselves, and maybe it's a lot more than we need to consider.
Or maybe they don't even know why it's still in
Maybe
there,
they
they'd be
don't,
happy
yeah.
that we're asking the question.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll pull after this.
Yeah.
I think if we bring it back to, then I can do a bit of research regarding political activity, like I just, for example, pulled up this is the Office of the Integrity Commissioner for Ontario. And, it does talk about public servants must not conduct political activity in the workplace, use government premises, equipment, or supplies for political activity, conduct any political activity while wearing a government uniform. So, we could do a little bit of research on that as well.
There's the word, right, in the workplace. This
Or
one's got
while wearing a
social media personal use.
Yes, yeah.
Like I think we're infringing on personal rights here.
I just wanted to ask, Mayor, if you had, not to put this to rest because I believe we'll be bringing it back, but was there any discussion or comments on the media relation and public statement sections? While I have your undivided attention.
Sorry, which
Just
one?
section 9 and section 10 of the same social media, media relations and public statements policy, if there was anything in there that I'd just like to, if there are issues, get them all out now so we can bring back a clean version.
I guess, I went through these documents and I guess my main thing was how much time is going into, or is this basically a complaint-driven complaint? Or is somebody actually going on employees' pages and looking?
So the personal social media is very much a complaints driven.
Okay.
The media relations and public statements is really operational. We deal with this every day. And
Because they have no privacy settings, they don't have to be friends with town.
no.
Town can see
I
their
know,
face.
I know. I do have one for 7.2. The town reserves the right to discipline employees for any personal use of social media which negatively impacts the town's legitimate business interests or the town's reputation. What does that mean? What does that mean exactly?
For example, I suppose if an employee was vehemently disagreeing with an action of the town in a way that was not supported by fact, that could be something that would receive, disciplinary action.
We're required as municipal staff to support council and their decisions, regardless of whether we agree with them or not, right? I think also, if you have a municipal employee that is a known municipal employee that, posts information that would be contrary to council's direction. And we're talking about situations where it's really inappropriate. We've got a municipal staff that is caught. We see this stuff on the news all the time, right? Where somebody was participating in a racist kind of anti-racist walk, or they're doing something that really doesn't conform with the direction of the town. This provides an option for the town to kind of reflect the values of that council has established for the town itself.
But again, is that not disciplinary action, and that's under HR, and code of conduct?
But the policies allow HR to draw from that, like to deal with it, right? Because we have a policy for it that, there's an expectation of how municipal staff act outside of the workplace.
And that's not just town, it's pretty much any corporation.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And outside.
Just got a comment and a suggestion, maybe we move social media personnel use to the personnel policy. Because I know staff has to, review the personnel policy and sign off on it. So at least that way they, as part of their package that they receive,
I like that idea because then it pulls the personal out of this and this one
Yeah.
will just be talking about when you're speaking for the town.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
I think it's the whole personal thing here that, yes, and I get it, I totally get you represent who you work for, I do understand that, but there's just a lot in here that I feel it's a little bit muddy. What's around?
Mr. Schrader's suggestion, I think, is worth considering, because the other thing it does is sometimes things get muddy when the cross references are forgotten or ignored or whatever, so putting it under one policy would eliminate the need to cross reference.
So that would be removing section 7 from this policy. We keep the social media town use, we keep the town communication devices, media relations, and public statements in this. And all of those things are related to town operations and the public statements and information we put out when we are acting as town representatives for administration and stuff.
So, as far as council, would you like administration to investigate the labor and those organizations, that clause in there?
Yes.
Or is-
I personally, I think if you really seem like they wrote it for no reason, I think there's a reason. We may not agree with the reason, but there's a reason.
So as far as moving forward, if we, direction would be personnel policy and then investigate one announcement of labor and other organizations.
Mayor, I have a question for Dean Schrader, if I may. If council chooses to remove the section 7 today, they could still, if they were okay, approve the rest of it. With the amendment being without section 7, and all of that will be brought back at a later time. The
No,
person,
I actually would like to see it, and maybe there's a reason, right? Like, maybe it does belong in here.
oh,
But let's understand that before we, maybe there's a reason it's not in the personnel policy, to begin with, right?
Okay,
okay.
sure.
So we have an hand up,
So I did.
yeah, okay. All right, so any more discussion on that? So we just need a motion then to bring this back at a later date, please. Councilor All? Okay, you have that,
A date?
do you want a date?
Yeah, can we do the first council meeting in August? Would that work?
August 4th.
4th?
That doable?
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor of that motion? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council.
Now moving on to 8.2. Corporate brand and communications policy.
I'm back. So this one is, I mean, it's no coincidence they're coming at the same time. They deal with communications and the town's voice. This one really, if you wanted to refer to that previous one as the external comms, this is more internal comms in terms of how the material that we're going to be put out to the public gets developed, really. And it also tightens up, modifies the way that our corporate logos and brands are used. And so that is outlined in 4.3, our visual identity. So this one, if council's okay with it, would rescind 2 previous iterations, a communications policy from 2016 and a logo policy from 2017. Dean Schrader was involved with that logo policy, and that was with regards to who could use our logo and put on commercial products for sale. There's been no uptake on it, and our CAO's direction, I guess it's fair to say, is that, and I would agree that nobody should be using our brand but us. And so that's why it's brought into this comms policy as corporate brand and communications policy, and why, if council chooses, it would rescind that policy from 2017.
I just have a question about that. Does that count, like, I know there's some local shops that are selling, t-shirts and whatnot with like big pot leaves on them that says welcome to Rocky Mountain and stuff. We obviously have nothing to do with that. Would that be covered under that, or is it only our corporate logo?
It's only our corporate logo. Yeah. We wouldn't want our corporate logo on something.
But it says our town name, like, but there's nothing.
We don't own our town name.
Yeah.
We own our visual identity, our brand. Yeah. And so this covers both of them, the corporate crest as well as our promotional where adventure begins.
Okay.
So, would there ever be a time where somebody could use it, like, let's say Disney was gonna move down, shoot them down, and they're gonna use the logo as it goes across the screen, credits and stuff. Is that something that does not allow now, or?
That would be allowed. It would be people putting our logo on, I have my water bottle there, the town water bottle, on a town water bottle and selling it for profit. It's not our product, but it's our brand.
Yeah.
And so that would, if they could put Town of Rocky Mountain House with pictures of trees and a river or anything like that, but they cannot use our corporate crest or our promotional logo.
Without express consent, so there would be.
Yes. Yeah.
Any other questions? Councilor Grayson?
I just had a question about 4.8 and how that relates to social media.
Okay. Any particular point or all of it?
I think obviously for official communications, the mayor is the town's chief spokesperson in many policies, priorities, and decisions. Council to the public unless otherwise designated to another member of council. Is there a particular level of communication? Is it heard from official council pages, from the town council page,
Sure,
that it becomes that? I just don't
see it under 4.4.
4.88.
Oh,
Basically, can we respond to things on voice your opinion and what you're
That
asking?
is my. You say no, it's not really the worst thing in my life either.
And that would very much be a decision and discussion at council level. It honestly did not come in to my head while we were putting this one together, because I was very much focused on the internal processes of building our communication and getting it out there. I would have to think on that and listen to council's thoughts on that too.
It does say external communication shall adhere to social media relations and public statements policy.
Which we don't have right now because we've set that over.
And that only doesn't deal with council anyways.
It was just the unless otherwise designated, and I know designate has a very specific meaning in legalese, so I was just curious what the interpretation of that would be.
Because there's a chance this could mean we couldn't respond on our own council pages too.
Yes.
Like this, that is a limiting statement in that sense as well. And we also couldn't respond to emails.
Yeah, I don't get either because to me it makes sense for maybe telling somebody, but I don't see how it's any different. Although one might choose not to engage there, than a council going out for coffee and somebody asking the same questions but in a private setting. They're still gonna get the same response. It's just one's more public. But anyhow, I don't know. So I don't know. Yeah, I'll leave it at that for now.
So why do we have social media in this one again?
It only just references that,
Okay.
and that is back where I was looking. The gathering and sharing of information for social media shall adhere to the social media policy. And this is when you're developing public-facing communications.
So it's only referring then to official town communications.
That's right, yeah. And how we inform citizens.
I'm just wondering if that whole section on mayor and council should be taken maybe to the council conduct, if that's, like, that seems like a better place to have that, as opposed to in, just, I know it doesn't The rules for us are different than they are for employees.
But even then, like, unless it's the mayor, a councillor speaking as a councillor, not necessarily for all councillors. Like, so I think like, I think there should be still a clear distinction if we're gonna be technically, but this is what happened, that's factual, so it doesn't have an opinion there, but you know, maybe if you're looking for opinion, this is my opinion as council officer, whatever.
So what are your wishes then? What do you like wishes?
I think it just needs to maybe be clearer as to what the venue is when it says explaining policies, priorities, and decisions of council to the public. Maybe that's the part that needs to be clearer, because it's the avenue, right? Whether it be, if it's a media inquiry, it automatically goes to the mayor. But if it's a social media question, and like, I think that just needs to be clearer, because we communicate publicly all the time. That's what we're here to do. So that's kind of, like putting a gag order on council.
Could I offer a suggestion? The mayor is normally the town's chief spokesperson, explaining policies, priorities, and decisions of the council in formal town communications, unless otherwise designated to another member.
I like that better.
So do you want to change that and then bring it back to the same meeting?
With the definition of what formal communications are, maybe in the definition section, unless it's there already.
It's not. I looked
But
over
we're
it.
adding it to the other one, right? So
We will want to make sure that they agree.
Any other things that anybody would like to change? Okay, so just a motion to, make those changes and bring it back to the August 4th meetings. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried, thank you.
Thank you, council.
Thank you, guys.
8.3. 40, oh, sorry, which one is it? Right, choosing the 5 minute. Got a launch for all, okay. Who am I bringing that over to Rob? Mr. Rothstein?
He's here and just needs to turn his camera on. There he is.
There he is.
Afternoon.
Afternoon.
All right. Yep, go ahead.
I'll turn this over to you. We're on 8.3, 48th Street and 53rd Ave intersection improvement.
Yes. So with that intersection improvement, we are looking at approximately $125,000 to complete the work. The work would include new walking trail on the corner, a swale, concrete swale to allow the water to flow freely without eating up the asphalt. Gets rid of the concrete structure in the middle of the road, and brand new pavement. This will allow better flow of traffic north to south, and allows right-hand turns, and it also allows better flow of traffic coming off of Main Street to 50th and 53rd. We did do a traffic study last year on this project, but it was inconclusive to what our actual needs are. We all have traveled this intersection many of times, and it causes a lot of grief for a lot of people having to go to the lights at 52nd Avenue.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Councillor Alderson?
I'm just wondering, like, because I think we all agree that there needs to be a change here, but I'm just curious, like, if there'd be a time that would be cheaper, because there's already being maintenance done on the road where things are getting bricked up, and then because there's already construction workers there, whoever's doing the work, is it possible that there's maybe a better time than just doing it immediately or whatever? Like, this is the cost if we just do it, if we're just doing that, or would there be a better time because of some of the things I just said? That would maybe overall.
No, I think now is the time to do it with the contractors that are in town. We get the best bang for our buck. It's definitely doable this year, later on in the season. For that area, with the spray park and whatnot, that shouldn't be any issue as the waterworks was already completed.
Is there any reason why we wouldn't do this? Like, it seems like everybody complains about this, but are we gonna regret doing that? Like for me personally, I see it being better traffic flow, turning there to be able to go to the arena, the school, or vice versa, to reverse that route. Can you see any reason why?
Except for the cost, I don't see any. People are already turning that way, just
Sure.
immediately.
Councilor Alt and Councilor Ellis?
I'd just like to know, is there background on why that was done to begin with?
So the background behind that intersection was when the high school was moved from its old location where the Tim Hortons is to the new location. They wanted to alleviate some pressure from the intersection in front of the community center. So instead of sending the traffic towards the community center, now they send it to the lights at Shoppers, 52nd Avenue, 48th Street. So one or the other, you're still going to a fairly major highway. But it was just to alleviate some of the pressure on those intersections.
Even after though, like say the community center had an event, that would alleviate some of that stress exiting that parking lot, right? Because you could turn there, because that was also the same time that exit from the arena to the community center was taken out.
That is correct.
Get from the parking lot of the community center to the arena. So, definitely once that happened, it really made it congested in that area, so. Councilor Phillips?
I think with the addition of the spray park going in there, this is now going to be more important. You're going to have more foot traffic and car traffic to make that section make sense. And I don't know, it's time to get this intersection to it.
Councilor Brixton?
It was along the same lines as the spray park. We've got Helen Huntley Park. We've got the 4-way stop happening over by the school. There's a lot of pressures that are going to happen in that area. There needs to be another route. Otherwise, we're going to end up with other issues.
Councilor Ryan?
Yeah, and just like a proper crosswalk in that area will make the whole thing safer, I think, for accessing the oval and the spray park and everything, because really the kids coming from the skate park and all that, there's not a real safe, clearly designated place to be crossing back and forth, so I think that's good too.
Yes, I agree.
People are already turning right when they're not supposed to. They're making an illegal turn there on a quite regular basis.
I don't.
I don't either, but I have.
Not the town.
And I think that's a clear sign that the residents think there needs to be a different element out there.
Yeah, I think my main thought too is that service road in front of the St. Sheriff's and that sees so much traffic and it'll get worse. Okay, any other discussion? We have an alternative. I will make the motion that it resolved that council authorize administration to proceed with the proposed changes to the 48th Street and 53rd Avenue intersection for completion in the 2020 construction season at a cost of $125,000 to be funded from the road reserves fund. Any other discussion around that motion? Okay, all those in favor of that motion? And that's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I guess you're up next too, so we'll do the RFD 49th Street, Edgerton Drive.
So this next one, we can actually take it off the paperwork. We do have the actual funds for it. They were carried forward from last year. I just figured that out with the engineer here. So save us some time.
And money.
Money.
That's awesome. So, I guess just we'll need a motion just to accept that as information. Please. Councillor Alderson, to accept 8.4 as information only.
I don't accept good information.
All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. Thank you. Thanks very much, Rob.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll move on to number 9.1, Chamber of Commerce kiosk discount program request. Who is that? Who is Mr. Streeter?
Sure, I can address it. As you can see in the letter that they are inquiring about reduced rates for residents for sandy dump use. Presently it's $8 for the use. I think they're proposing $4. They would purchase the tokens within the VIC during business hours. Whether they stockpile a few as they come around next time, that type of thing. I know the county and the town cost shared on that sandy dump. I'm not sure if they forwarded this letter to the county for their use for their residents or not. Presently, we do give $32,000 annually for the operation of the VIC. They work on a budget of roughly $90,000 to operate the VIC. $32,000 from the county, and they roughly make about $30,000 from either the sanding dump and other general sales from the VIC. So that's working within the budget. Can't comment on if this would affect the overall budget in regards to revenue. We don't have the numbers, of course, in regards to local residents using the sanding dump, whether it's 1,000 people at $4 a pop, $4,000 off the bottom line, or not. So.
Councillor Alderson, Councillor Moran.
Yeah, so I remember when this first came in, and there is other communities that don't charge for sand, there's other communities that do. The $8 felt somewhere within reason, as I recall, but a lot of those communities are bigger communities, and the thing is that there's still a cost, which means that somebody's still paying for this cost. It's just people that aren't even using it now, which is other residents. So personally, I'm not in favor of reducing it down, because that's the cost of the people in the town.
Councillor Moran.
That's actually exactly what I was gonna say.
Councillor Fraser.
I guess just on the other side of things, if we are encouraging tourism and we're having people come to this area, is this a cost of tourism? Is this a cost of having tourism come to the area, similar to you have extra trash in the summer, you have extra recycling in the summer? Would this be something that would fall under that as a draw to have them come into the area?
Councillor Phillips and Councillor Moran, Councillor Alderson.
So, yes, it is a service that some residents use for sure. If it becomes a free service, it's going to be used exponentially more because it's free. I don't know if those residents or those people are necessarily mistaken, it was kind of done in gold, which then puts that cost on the taxpayers because there's no. My viewpoint is we're going to see an increased use and probably increased costs, and we're going to go on that.
But that was just for the residents in Clearwater County, not for,
Town,
just for the town.
just for the town of Clearwater.
Sorry, just for the town, but still charging $8 to everybody else who's coming through.
I understand what Councilor Fraser is saying. Free there.
Yeah, there's all sorts of ways you can, yeah.
Councillor Moran, Councillor.
Two things, I guess, going back to what Councillor Alderson and I agreed with, was there's a cost doing that. The money that is made, all the money from what gets paid, that is going to the VIC. So it's not actually covering the cost of the water anyway, so that argument is moot. We're still actually, non-users are still subsidizing the use of that facility regardless of if we charge for it or not, right? Really?
Yeah, correct.
Is
The
that
water,
what
there is
you
no
guys
cost for the water.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, there's no cost for the water. If you weren't using the sand dump, you can still pull up and use of water.
Right, so then the maintenance is still a cost that's being absorbed by the general taxpayer.
Correct.
So that argument doesn't really, I guess, sit well. The other thing that I'm wondering is that if we made it free, do we have the space? For how many people would be lining up at that spot for freedom?
It's not free.
No, if it were, like if we were, or I guess, yeah, true, even if, but if we lowered it to the $4, is it gonna increase the usership? Because I know when it's busy, there's like traffic going out already.
Isn't
So-
there a free sector?
I don't actually have, because of, now that I've realized that money goes to VIC, I don't actually have an issue with subsidizing it for town.
Councillor Overson?
Yeah, I think it doesn't make a point, but it proves my point, because there is a cost involved, and it's not for water, it's actually for operations, to fix it, whatever, so yes, VIC gets some of that money, it's also to man that, there's a lot of things breaking down all the time, and it's costly. That's why part of the cost was initially incorporated into the state dollar fee. And much like Councillor Phillips said, like it should not be on the town to have, so other people coming through for tourism, great, so that's, now we have town residents paying for other people to camp. In our backyard, but not in Rocky Mountain, at the cost of the Rocky taxpayer, not on the whole of the region, does not make any sense to me. They want it for free, there's certainly free ones down the road, but they're coming in here using the service here, and there's a cost to that service.
The VIC pays for maintenance of that?
It comes out of the general coffers of the VIC. Engineering operations will go up there and need to do maintenance on, say, the cement or cleaning. They look after the water taps, that type of stuff. But as far as the actual kiosk itself, we pay an annual fee. When I say we, VIC pays an annual fee for the 6 month of maintenance on that kiosk. Whether they need that maintenance or not is a contract that we entered with the company that supplied the kiosk. So.
And the town pays that or the VIC?
VIC pays it. It comes out
But
of.
the VIC pays it out of this.
Correct, out of the money
And
they
so-
collect.
If they weren't getting it from that, yeah,
Yeah.
so I guess it's paying for the system.
Right.
And that to me is critical.
So, yeah, so it's tough to look into the future, but say 2021, if they're short $5,000, I guess where does that come from to operate the VIC? Like, you've got to take that into consideration. Also, I know that it's hidden cost, but, when it goes from the sandy dump to the lagoon, there are costs to operate the lagoon. With those costs, you're not paying, the VIC any more money, but at the same time, you're not taking money, you're putting money towards the lagoon.
You're
For
right.
upkeep on that as well. So,
It's such a big, you really have to follow it, like,
Councillor Phillips, Councillor Fraser.
The dollars to run, this sand dump may not come directly from the town of Rocky. It's coming technically from the information center, but really we're just taking money from our left pockets to give our right pocket. To say that we're not paying for it, we are, but it's just indirectly through the VIC center. So if we lose that revenue stream, they're gonna lose the revenue stream, which means it has to be made of something, which will end up being bad on the general taxpayers in town, as opposed to like just dumping it aside.
Councillor Fraser.
No, I don't have a unit that uses a sandy dump, I'll just say that right now. I think my issue with the fee for residents is that of how the sewage fees are calculated on their water bill. It's based on usage. So if I fill my unit up at home, I pay my town water rate. I also pay the town sewer rate for that. And I understand that people coming through, people who don't contribute to the tax base, I understand that there's a fee for service. That makes sense to me. I can also see how if I'm paying sewage fee for the use of that water, paying an additional fee could be stressful. I don't know if there's a way to do tokens if they come into the town office and register. I don't know,
Isn't that what that's what the ask is?
Yeah, they're offering that.
Yeah, that's what the chamber offers, if you bring your utility bill, you can buy a token for $4 rather than paying the $8.
Councillor Alderson.
Yeah, I guess my heart's just not breaking. These are thousands and thousands of dollars for trailers, motorhomes, et cetera. They're paying whatever to go rent a spot out, certainly more than an $8 fee. And over the course of whatever, things get backed up, you come to town, you pay the $8. It's not gonna make or break something, but anyhow, that's my opinion. But I still remember before those were installed on the last council, and every year they'd be coming asking for a lot more money because it wasn't coming, this revenue stream didn't exist. It does now, because it's paid per use, people who actually are using it. I don't have a problem with this fee, $8.
Councillor Brown?
I mean, what I liked about the concept was to kind of reward residents, and I still think we need to reward residents where we can. It's just that this is good for me. I think it's kind of cool.
Councillor Fraser?
I'm a data girl. I think this would be a really even if we did it as a pilot project, I'd be curious to know how many residents are actually using the Sandy dump. How many dumps are actually happening that are town residents versus outside, non-tax based. It might be interesting to show them, this is how many people come through here that don't pay taxes here to maintain this service. It might provide us some good data for decisions.
It sort of sounds like we maybe need to reopen and examine this again, like how this operates with the chamber. Councillor Alden?
Well, the ask is coming from the chamber, so they're kind of already on board with it. They must have done their research on their budgeting. But I 100% agree with lots of them Aaron said about, they're filling up their trailers at home, so they get billed for the sewage already. They're paying the extra money when they go and dump. As a town resident, I can see it being a minimal cost to the town. They've already paid it. I'm quite in favor of it.
Do you think that that is what the town residents want? They want $4 here all the time?
Like nothing.
Okay. Again,
Yeah, I think that to lump everybody as town residents, I think the users of it, who would not want to go from $8 to $4 as a user? I mean, you're gonna make, of course, you're always gonna want something that you get for less, who wouldn't want that? But I don't know, I'd love to see that research as well. And I'd also love to know the numbers of what it cost town before, when they're coming year to year, so I'd like X number of years. What they were asking for to run that before this existed. And now that it exists, town is down and asked for that money because they're made up here, and now all of a sudden it's slashing in half. So I'd like to see that research, and that research is all financial, that's a big difference.
Like over the years, the revenue has increased since the donation box per se, like we had that in place before. We did the kiosks in 2016, I think.
So how much cost savings to town?
What's that, I'm sorry?
So how much cost savings to town?
Yeah.
With that there.
Right. And I think we kind of stayed the course in regards to our annual fee. It hasn't increased per se, but it hasn't decreased either over the last years that we had the kiosks there.
so why wouldn't we include the county in this, since they also fund this?
That would be the chamber writing,
Yeah.
I don't know if they submitted the same letter to
Is
the,
it because we're the water and the lagoon, is that why?
possibly.
Because they've already paid the sewage fee
Right,
in town, whereas in the county you don't.
they don't pay the sewage fee, right? Okay, Councillor Phillips and Councillor Moran?
When we're looking at data and looking at how much it's cost us in the past, what's it costing us now, one thing I'm also looking to find out too is if they're saying going from $8 to $4, it's gonna drop the revenue stream. How are they gonna make that? I'd like to ask the chamber, how are they gonna make that up? Because if they don't have an answer, I can make up this $5,000 or $10,000, whatever that dollar amount is, we know where the ask is gonna come. It's gonna come back to us in the form of another ask in a different way. So I'd like to hear the business model of how they're going to justify a smaller revenue stream.
Councillor Moran?
I just have two questions. I don't really see that this impacting the revenue stream that much, because only, you have to get out of your unit to go all the way up into the, like to get with your utility bill, to get the token, do the thing. So I think that's almost my $4. anyway, so I don't really, and it would be a data thing to find out how many people are actually going to do that. But then I'm also wondering, when you have a trailer full, aren't you gonna empty it as soon as humanly possible rather than carrying all that back to town with you? Like, isn't it more economic?
There's only so many places in the West Country.
Okay,
you can dump.
okay, so it would depend on where you're coming from. And then also the water there is free for use, right, to fill up. So why wouldn't, instead of filling up at your own house, why wouldn't you go there to fill up?
Some people do.
Okay,
Convenience, probably.
yeah.
Yeah,
But I would be interested on the data, if we did do it as a pilot project, I think that would be the best idea, because I don't see it being much of an impact myself, I don't know.
See, the free water there, that's mainly designed for the tourists going through, so they're like in, they're stopping your dump, refill, keep going,
Yeah.
that's all. A bit $8.
Mr. Schrader and then Ms. Robertson?
I'll pass that for, I hate that for. I had a good point.
What's the pilot project being offered here? What's the pilot project?
Just what the chamber is suggesting, that if a town resident brings their utility bill, they can get a 50% off token to use. Because if they're just paying at the point, they're still paying $8. If you're using a credit card to pay, you still pay your $8. And I would be curious to know who would be paying for the convenience of not having to remember to have all that information. But we might be creating a black market for half price tokens.
Can you dump in Nordic? Oh, you can. How much is it in Nordic?
It's still the old honor system, it's
So
supposed to be
just
$5.
Oh, okay, so classic, kind of like Western.
Which was not being used.
Yeah.
And it's not being used out there either,
No. And can you fill up from water, with water for free there?
not potable.
Not potable. See, I think that's a big,
That's worth $8 to me.
that's worth $8 to fill your tank with water, potable water here. Yeah. So what would we like to see?
I was just gonna comment, the administration has talked about putting a meter on the potable water to see how many liters are actually being used during the summer, whether it's worth looking at charging for the potable water in regards
But it might
to.
also justify the charge that people are always upset about the $8. So that meter alone might show the justification for the charge dumping.
We're not sure how it would work. I'm not, whether there's a kiosk here, whether we'd have to have another kiosk here, like whether it's $4 each or whatever it is, like, but we don't know if there's 1 million liters going out or 100,000 liters. I mean, it's $1.63 for every 1,000 liters. So,
We meter everything, why would that not be metered? You don't have to answer that.
yeah.
It should,
To me, that is a pilot project. Meter that.
Okay, so we have some direction here then. How much is a meter? How much does a meter cost?
So the meters, we just have to hook it up just to see what's being used. I know this isn't a true year as far as, collecting data, but I guess we, that'd be Mr. Shank's Public Works question.
So we're already halfway through our county season. So should we just talk to the chamber and find out, like get a meter put on there, get some more data, and then make improvements for the 2021 county season? Mr. Shanks, how much would a water meter cost?
Roughly about $280, but we do have some spares kicking around that we have taken out of other homes, that if that's all we're looking at doing is finding out how much water we're going through, we could use a used one.
Okay, and then maybe, we look at doing tokens, 10 tokens for a blanket charge or something like that.
and maybe a maximum per year that you can buy, so we to avoid the black market.
Right.
So are we looking for 2021 or for the $4 tokens for 2020?
I just think we're halfway through the season now, by the time we get this.
Well, I was gonna say, and also, we're not saying we lost revenue, but first couple months, May and June, it was free.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking for, the budget for the chamber, maybe lower than the norm in regards to moving forward.
Yeah.
I know they only requested 8,500 out of the 16,000 for their, biannual payment or fee or contribution. So just because of the hours, they weren't open in that. So I'm suggesting at possibly 2021, you may want to look, you know, we can look at something like this for 2021, where it's a true number
Sure.
in regards to the number of local residents that are using the sanding dump, but also metering the water as well.
We can meter it now, right?
What's that,
The
sorry?
metering can be done immediately.
Oh, it can be done, yeah, but you just won't get a true number, I guess, as far as the number of, but you could ballpark it on average, like say in the average of, say, month of August,
Yeah.
it uses 100,000 liters, well, you times that by 3 months on average.
This year we're guessing, but it's better than
Yeah.
completely guessing.
So how long does it take to hook a meter up? Mr. Shanks?
That one's gonna be a little bit more difficult because of the location, and we don't want people to vandalize it, so we'll have to construct some kind of a storage box for it to sit in. It's doable. We could probably have it done in a week.
Okay, what are council's wishes here? Council Fraser?
I think the chamber has, because the revenue for this funds the VIC, which is run by the chamber, and the chamber has come to us and said, obviously, our budget can handle this reduction. I guess if there's overrun, then they'll need to deal with that like any other business.
Do they have an idea as to how much the reduction will be though?
And that might be a discussion we need to have with them.
And I'm not
If this money
sure,
goes straight to the VIC, why don't they just institute a program where it's a chamber-sponsored program that says town residents come get a $4 token? Why do we even need to be involved in that? Like, if this is the money that's going to them, can't they give a coupon or make a coupon or something?
it'd be the token, like
Oh,
the
yeah,
actual
exactly.
token that
Yeah, that's
is
what I'm
actually
saying,
token.
like, if this is
Yeah,
their revenue,
right.
That's kind of what I'm saying is
yeah,
that
like, shouldn't.
it's their budget. If so long as their budget makes sense at the end of the year, I don't have to put extra money in.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
If they wanna
and they can say the chamber is doing this for,
love the Rocky Chamber.
yeah.
I was just gonna comment, in 2016, when we implemented the kiosk there, we did receive, you know, a few calls, when I say a few calls, maybe a half a dozen calls, and that's all we've really received over the last 4 years in our office downstairs in regards to the kiosk. So, sure, there was some upset, you know, residents as far as us charging. They probably didn't donate to the cause when it was a donation bid, but over the 4 years, like I said, maybe a half a dozen calls that we received, so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speculate who did or didn't, you know, donate to the box,
Right.
donation box, but I just think it's $4, like, this is $4, we're spending a lot of time on this, and it is absolutely the chamber's money.
So is there something that would that's stopping the chamber from just being able to do their own promotion? That says town residents come and get our tokens.
Can I speak to that?
Yeah.
Just because it's a town facility, and back on April 14th, council made a resolution regarding the waiving of the fees at the Sunny Dump until such time as the visitor information center opened. And so once that was open, then it had to go back to the user pay because it's a municipal facility. And so to make that change, I think they're coming to council to request that change, right? Because it's a municipal facility.
It's one of these weird relationships, because there's the chamber that does this, but the money goes to the VIC comes to council for money, and that's what's always impacted. It's not the chamber that's coming to asking for money when things,
Yes.
yeah, it's the VIC. So there's often confusion here because the chamber is running things, it goes to the VIC, but when less revenue's coming in, the VIC needs more, they're not going to the chamber, they're coming to council. That's what the problem lies. And so personally, I think we meter it up, in my opinion, we should meter up this year, but again, we're halfway through the budget season, and we can find out what to do next year. Leave as is.
I think it's too far through the year to make the change right now. And I think exactly, the VIC is the chamber, it's
would half the year actually help us? I guess if it gets dropped down to $4 and suddenly you're like, oh my goodness, we've lost all of this revenue, then we don't do it next year.
But it's not our revenue.
No, but like, I guess they might decide, oh my goodness, there's that's not a sustainable number for a full year.
But they need to earmark a certain amount of their own budget that they're willing to allocate to making up that other $4.
I like the library fees.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
No different.
They need to show it in their budget line of this is how much
That's
the
right.
subsidy cost us, we made that choice, not just being like.
Maybe I see shorter.
Yeah.
Is the chamber prepared to make that up? I doubt it.
Councilor Phillips?
And if we make this decision this year, good luck trying to change it next year. It's gonna create some activity for this year, but then we realize we made a mistake, and next year it's gonna come back and bite everybody.
I think it just needs more exploration. It does, because it's not just a simple, let's cut it down, or we're cutting it down for next year too, but I think it needs more exploration.
There needs to be a meeting, they need to
Yeah.
come up with some numbers.
That's right. So we'll need to
I
get more
didn't hear
data.
Councilor Alls, I'm sorry.
We just need to sit down with them and have a meeting and say, get the numbers, what they think the numbers are gonna be a loss this year. Maybe we implement it next year, if it looks like it's feasible.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, we see, should be numbers involved
Yes,
when we're making financial decisions.
Yeah.
okay, so what's council in the direction?
Invite Commissioner to the chamber.
Councilor Renee?
Yeah, sorry, should we just invite the chamber to come and present on this?
Sure.
Some numbers.
But also install a meter, is that the same motion?
Well, then, yeah, that's our duty as far as, we'll install the meters.
Mr. Shanks?
Just with the meter, because there's two spouts out there, we would have to have 2 meters in there if we're gonna do this properly.
So this is a financial impact, so do we wait until we get the chamber in and have this discussion? Because this is now a financial impact to the town.
Like $280.
No, times 2, and then they also have to put a casing around it.
1 year free, you already have a pump available? Sorry, I believe, from what I understood, there's at least one pump that's already there, so it would be a financial impact of $280 to see a meter at the other one.
How much would the cage be to go around it?
Oh boy, I wouldn't even want to throw a guess at that one. It's either that or we dig up the main water line that goes to the sandy dump, which is one line, and you put a box in the ground, and that's where the meter stays, and it's only 1 meter.
I don't know, that might make more sense. The reality is that we're gonna want a meter there
Yes,
on
the
the
data.
anyhow, like,
Yes, that-
whether it's done an hour later, it should have been there already probably, if there's meter, it's like, I don't want it there.
Okay, so we need 2 separate motions then. We need a motion, Councilor Ryan, are you?
Sure, that one, but to the chamber to present on this topic.
That's right, and bring more information,
Bring
more
more
data.
information. Yeah.
Do you have that, Renee, and
Yes, I
did you read it to them?
Can I add that they bring their financials that shows where that will come from, just so we have our due diligence, right?
We need to invite DIC to make a presentation here.
They're the same though, right? Isn't the chief of the IC?
Yeah, they're more or less the same. Like I know, but in prior years, they tried to keep it separate, but of course the accounting kind of went awry, like in regards to the books, so it's kind of, so,
The accounting.
yeah.
Okay, I heard counting.
Oh, sorry, accounting.
Counting.
Oh, I heard county as well.
Sorry, I apologize.
Just make sure we clarify.
But the accounting kind of, so we do have like a kind of a mutual agreement with the county, town, and the chamber in regards to operating the BIC.
And I think then the county also needs to be part of the discussion, so keep them in the loop as well, so. Renee, do you have a motion to do that?
Be it resolved that council instruct administration to invite the chamber to present to council on this matter with more information, specifically including financial implications of the program.
And any other rationale?
On this matter, or just regarding,
To present to council on this matter,
no, but what's the matter?
The matter would be the kiosk discount program.
Okay, that's, did you say that in the first part of it?
Yeah, well, it's right under that, that titled item on the agenda, but I can specifically reference the kiosk discount
Sure.
program.
Okay, I think that would be clear in the minutes. Is everybody clear on that motion? Okay, all in favor of that motion? It's carried. And then we'll need a motion to have, Public Works put a meter
Meter.
at the EIC for the water pumping station, what's it?
Or do we need to,
What is it?
let's get the cost of
Yeah,
it
the cost first.
Yeah. Bring back the cost.
Is there somewhere that states when it's if it's under a certain amount of money that they don't need to bring it back to council? Like if it's under $1,000, that it's something they can just do? Like is there?
I'm not familiar with that. I just spend money.
They must have a miscellaneous expenditure line.
I'm just looking at the time frame too, right? Because now we don't have
Yeah.
a meeting next Tuesday, we have a meeting in 2
Yeah.
weeks.
Yeah.
And so if we're wanting proper data, so what, I guess,
Just call
can you phone a friend? Do we need a motion then, or can, if Public Works has,
it. The budget.
okay, we better,
Mr. Shanks, do you have money that could work for something like this?
No, sir.
Okay,
no?
No.
Okay, so then the motion will be to bring back the cost of what it's going to be to put a meter at the dining kiosk.
Sure.
So there are two options, one that, set of years.
Would that not be part of it?
That would, yeah, he'll probably just bring us back the best option. Especially if he has one, you know, maybe he'll have to. Make that motion. Okay, thanks. Okay, are we clear? Renee, you're clear on that motion?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, everybody's clear on that motion? All in favor of that motion? That's carried, thank you. Okay, 9.2. Thanks, Mr. Shanks.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Ken Mountain Hotel, Rocky Mountain House, request for deferral of property tax. Who am I turning this over to?
Not sure myself or Ms. Quinlan,
Okay.
speak.
Just I did do some research on this. Currently, there is a balance outstanding. Oh, sorry.
Good afternoon, Mayor, and Your Worship and Council. So I haven't spoken to this individual. I did send them an email asking for what other municipalities have given them this type of a discount. There is a large amount outstanding. If I say it quietly or quickly, it's about $127,000 between all three properties. In the past, they have always been paying on a monthly payment plan, so I think they were excellent corporate citizens. The payments were reduced once the COVID landed and impacted everybody. My only concern with having, just looked at this very briefly is if you give a 10% discount to one group because of, and I understand there is financial hardship, absolutely, but it's then how do you be equitable to all of the rest of the organizations? We have taken measures for property taxes. We've, reduced the penalties, well, basically canceled them for the entire year. So there will be, if there's any outstanding balances, there will be outstanding balances on January 1st. So they only have till the end of the year, but we've reduced all the penalties, so in essence, they have the entire year. So I think we've done what we can. It's council's choice if they chose to do that, but I do think it could create some other implications for you.
Oh, I totally
Yeah.
agree. I don't know how we could do that. I guess my question would, was, were they able to take advantage of any of the federal or provincial programs to help them?
Yeah.
And those are things that I guess, you know, you could ask them personally and find out. Councilor Phillips? Councilor Rang?
I just think that, you know, we know that this is a difficult year for anybody that has a business of any sort. But as Betty had said, when we start doing this for one business and one individual, it will reflect things through to the entire community. And we're in a position where we just drop property taxes by 10%. So
Well, and I guess I don't even know what that ask is. What's 10%? We don't know what the even ask is, so.
Well, it would be $12,000.
That's just on the, what's outstanding.
No, this would be, this is the full amount, like for all three properties for the year, so it'd be 10%.
Are we even allowed to reduce taxes?
For one person?
I do think the last briefing note I brought, there is a section where council can, you can set rates and do things, but yeah, it could even be a little dicey.
It's all the border for sure.
Yeah, it feels a little.
Councilor Alderson, Councilor Fraser?
Yeah, you said there were on a payment plan. I know this is not the first time somebody's requested something like this, and it usually ends up being that, you know, something we can work there to go back on the payment plan.
Well, and we've been working very hard with all of the customers, and I know that, you know, Louise does a great job, and we've talked that, we say, we understand things are tough, so even if you go back on the payment plan, pay whatever you can right now, like just so that we have, and if you're on on tips, then there's no arrears charges. So, I mean, we are working with customers and saying, you know, we get it. Right now, the cash flow might not be there, so, you know, even if it's just a nominal amount, so that we know that you're still paying attention. But yeah, I do think that you would have some concern if.
We had this request a couple months ago. Yeah, so, I think
it's minor.
Councilor Fraser?
Well,
Not from this company, but from a different place.
the headline is deferral, but they're not asking for a deferral. They're asking for a 10% reduction, so we're asking for a discount. And so to apply that fairly across the board, we have about $10 million in tax revenue, so $1 million, if everybody got 10% off their tax bill, it's $1 million. That's a lot of cheddar.
All right, so we need a motion then, what are our council's wishes? Do we send a letter then? Yeah. I guess, can we send a letter? I'll make that motion to send a letter. And, you know, hoping that they're also able to take advantage of some of the other programs that were offered.
Would we also then direct administration to work with the, which is what you're doing anyways, but it's just nice to have it. Showing some compassion in our minutes.
I think. Should we send a letter or should we just have administration work with them and?
Maybe a letter stating inside the letter different ways that we can help them.
Sure.
But I do think their request is that term, so.
We're saying no, make a motion.
Yeah, so we do need to say.
So we need a motion to say we're not.
Correct, please.
Accept the request for 10% discount. And send a letter.
We have to make motions that are positive. How do you make a positive motion that says,
Yes.
no, we're not doing that? So
For
for the letter and offer to assist them in, paying the taxes.
Both. I can make that
Sure,
motion.
okay.
Are you gonna articulate it?
We're denying the request at this point in time. And then send a letter, it's a separate motion. Offer what services that we can.
Is that okay? Everybody okay with that? Okay. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, I'm just looking for a motion to accept correspondence for information. So 10.1 to 10.15 is correspondence. Mr. All in favor of that motion? Carried. Did anybody have any questions about my report? I'm just looking for a motion, please, to accept Councilor Phillips, the mayor's report. All in favor of that? And that's carried. Anybody have any questions for the councilor reports?
Mine's in paper.
Oh, it's in here?
Yeah, it's right here.
Oh, thank you.
She did hand it over.
My dog ate it. Never give it.
Okay, I'll make a motion to accept the councilor's reports as written. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Any questions on the action list, 12.1? Just a motion to accept the action list as presented. Mr. Brown, all in favor? Carried. Administrative inquiries. Mr. Alderson?
Oh, yeah. So why is I'm just curious, and, there's probably some sort of role as that, but I'm just curious, how some of the other, like the ice and everything else might be rolling out, but, in particular, I was asking because I'm wondering about the Canada Temple, I believe it is next door, but the children's room, sorry. But all of it, you're in that.
We are in the midst of dealing with our reopening plan, and particularly when it comes to the hockey arenas. We're dealing with the guidance documents that Alberta Health and the Alberta government have provided to us. And following those recommendations, when it comes to our users, Hockey Alberta, Skate Canada, they provided some documents that we're taking as information, putting together what our plan is. Our plan is to meet with all of our ICE users next week. Sort of, here's what we're proposing, getting their feedback so that when we are ready to relaunch. Our ICE plant is moving along on schedule, so we're planning to be open for September 1, like we had planned. So got a little bit of time yet, but at the same time, making plans for what's that look like for bringing staff back, to meet all those needs from a cleaning perspective. When it comes to the child play space next door, we haven't opened that yet, even though the facility here, just because of the number of touch points and those types of things, the cleaning that would be required at this time.
So it's a little rough. Idea about that might happen, like months
Um,
weeks.
I guess if we were to treat it like a playground, which are allowed to be open, we could potentially open that, but at this point, from the facility perspective, we're looking at what do we have for staff that would be required. I know one of the things that was asked from council was, what's our plan for that room? I know in talking with our staff that it does get used. We do get inquiries from individuals or people that do play dates or those types of things. So I think there is perhaps still merit. We just don't offer the babysitting or childminding service out of that room right now. I'm not sure if that totally answered your question, but
I didn't think there would be necessarily a date in mind, but I was just curious, because besides the fact that I have small kids that have that same question, because there is rainy days, and yes, it's summer, but there's days where parents are considering that room, so just figured I'd ask.
I think we could potentially open up, a lot of it is the cohort family groups. One group, you have to practice the social distancing It's a little hard to do in that confined space when you're dealing with if you have a parent coming with their 2 kids, then we would have to go in and sanitize the entire room after they're done. I think it comes to logistics as far as our cleaning staff right now.
Answer? Okay, and I just have an inquiry. I noticed about there's some chunks of whatever product on that wall, the David Thompson canoe wall are falling off. Is it possible to find out?
Yes, Crystal Mosey is aware, and she's been out of the province, so she is planning to come and do repairs.
Okay, good, thank you. Perfect. Any notices of motion? Okay, thank you. And at 3:36, I'll call a 5-minute break.
Yeah,